I'm honored to stand and speak today on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the legislation establishing Alaska as our 49th state. I continue a tradition of sorts. A former Idaho Senator, Frank Church, stood in this same chamber 50 years ago, May 5th, 1958 to be exact, to call for Alaska's statehood. And let me begin, if I may, with the words that Senator Church recited that day. Wild and wide are my borders, stern as death is my sway. And I will wait for the men who will win me, and I will not be won in a day. And I will not be won by weaklings, subtle, suave, and mild, but by men with the hearts of Vikings and the simple faith of a child. Desperate, strong, and restless, unthrottled by fear or defeat, them will I guide and gild with my treasure. Them will I glut with my meat. Send me the best of your breeding. Lend me your chosen ones. Them will I take to my bosom. Them will I call my sons. These lines come from a poem entitled The Law of the Yukon and were written by Robert W. Service, a Canadian poet who traveled north, caught up the fever of the Klondike Gold Rush, and wrote these words. The poem was inspired by the majesty of the land of the Northwest Territories and the Alaska Territory. And for Senator Church, they set the stage for an impassioned, intricately argued plea for Alaska's statehood. Senator Church spoke that day of taxation without representation. He referenced the treaty by which the United States acquired Alaska, which said that the inhabitants of the territory shall be admitted to the enjoyment of all the rights, advantages, and immunities of citizens of the United States, and shall be maintained and protected in the free enjoyment of their liberty. Senator Church asked this body the question, can it be that ours too will be the error of the Roman Senate, which sapped the vitality and strength from the Roman Republic, refusing to extend the right of franchise until the government became a mockery, empty of principle? Fortunately for the United States in this matter, right prevailed that year, and those calling for Alaska's statehood were vindicated in their tireless quest. The admission of Alaska into the Union represents a rejection of the status quo, a manifestation of the very American tendency to look beyond what is to what could be, and Alaska has exceeded all expectations. That historic 1958 debate about Alaska's statehood mentions things familiar today, which remain the backbone of Alaska's economy, and by extension are integral to the United States economy: salmon, oil, and natural gas, to name a few. Alaska enriched our inventory of public land immeasurably. Forests rich in wildlife, the majestic mountains of the Denali, and the breathtaking flanks and soaring peak of Mount McKinley. Glaciers of incredible beauty, rivers teeming with salmon, and bays and harbors with orcas and other ocean wildlife. Alaska holds beauty and riches beyond measure, above and below the land, above rivers and the oceans. Periodically, the United States Senate does something that, in the words of Senator Church that year, falls outside the realms of meeting exigencies of the present. When the Senate bestowed statehood on Alaska 50 years ago this week, it grasped the brief, shining moment history had granted it and looked beyond partisan politics to do something great and glorious for our nation. I appreciate the senator from Alaska's invitation to speak during this auspicious time in Alaska's history. I'm proud of the role of Idaho lawmakers in the history of Alaska's statehood, particularly Senator Church and Congresswoman Gracie Fost, who also supported Alaska's statehood that year. In fact, an editorial in the Fairbanks News Miner on May 6, 1958, called Senator Church one of Alaska's greatest champions in Congress. Idaho and Alaska will always have much in common. Both western Rocky Mountain states, we face similar land use, similar wildlife and natural resource issues, and we both celebrate the staggering beauty of our land. While Idaho does not have the largest amount of wilderness area in the continental United States, While Idaho does have the largest amount of wilderness in the continental United States, it is dwarfed, of course, by Alaska, which has the largest amount of federal land of any state. Idaho and Alaska lawmakers can be proud of half a century of working together for the good of our states, of our constituents, and of the Mountain West. Congratulations to Senator Stevens and Senator Murkowski on the birthday of your great state. Thank you, Mr. President.